This is the Logitech BRIO 300, but does it have what it takes to be the rightful heir to the throne of the Logitech C920 Pro? Let's find out. The Logitech C920 has been around for a long time, and you can't really go wrong with it. Now, you can kind of tell by holding both of them, like I just did, that the Logitech C920 is a little bit heavier. It's got a couple of advantages. It's got a quarter 20 mount on the base of it, whereas the Logitech BRIO 300 doesn't have that. But it's an older camera. It's got older firmware, and anything that's built into the camera is going to be a bit outdated and outmoded compared to what's in the Logitech BRIO 300. Now this one, the Logitech BRIO 300, looks a bit more modern. You can see it's got kind of a conical design. It has a lighter weight to it. It also has a USB-C end on it as well that's fixed to the back of the camera. So it's a bit more modern in terms of its outward appearance. The other thing that's an advantage is the privacy shutter is built in. So you can actually flip it up and have the privacy shutter in the open position, or you can also physically close it to ensure that the camera is not on and that you're not being filmed or recorded in any way. Some other things it shares kind of in common with the Logitech C920 Pro. It has an indicator light to know whether or not the camera is on and running, and it also has a built-in microphone. Now we're going to test all of these things out and see what we can do to tweak them and also compare the images between the C920 Pro and the Logitech BRIO 300. Okay, so what you're seeing here on the left is the Logitech C920 Pro, and on the right you're seeing the Logitech BRIO 300. Now, out of the box, these are the default settings. You are seeing a dramatically different color tone from either camera. The C920, I would say, has a bit more of a purple tone to it, maybe a bit more pinkish depending on how you look at it, whereas the Logitech BRIO 300, it kind of has a bit more of a raw camera feel to it, a bit unsaturated in my opinion, but it's a completely different look compared to the C920. So this is kind of a preference thing. But now let's have a listen next to what the different microphones sound like. Okay, so this is the microphone on the Logitech BRIO 300, just so you can listen to this. I'll talk for a second so you can hear the microphone on Logitech BRIO 300. And now you're hearing the microphone on the Logitech C920 Pro. These are at identical distances from one another. The lenses are both aligned in terms of their distance from me, so you can see from a framing perspective and field of view how much different they are, but this is the microphone on the C920 Pro. All right, so let's talk specs for a second. So the BRIO 300 has a maximum resolution of 1920 by 1080. It has 30 frames per second as the maximum frames per second. It will actually do 29.97, which I found kind of interesting, as well as 24 frames and some of the lower frame rates as well. Everything with both cameras, whether it's the C920 Pro or the Logitech BRIO 300, they're using MJPEG format, so there's not any real difference there. But this one does have that 29.97 frame rate. Okay, so this is both cameras, what they look like after taking them through a little bit of tuning on Logitune software, just to go through both of the different camera settings that I've set. On the BRIO 300, I have auto exposure still turned on. I've got white balance at about 4000, 3940. The brightness down just a little bit from 128 to 126. The contrast is up to 137, saturation up a bit to 149 because it was very unsaturated, very gray. And sharpness I have down a little bit because I noticed a bit of noise in the background that seemed to get worse as I got it sharper. Now if I go back to the Logitech C920 Pro, the image adjustments that I have here are I've turned off automatic focus, so it's got autofocus, whereas the BRIO 300 doesn't have autofocus. Auto exposure is left on. The auto white balance is off. Got white balance on the C920 at 4857. I can read. Brightness down quite a bit to 98. Contrast at the factory setting 128. Saturation at 106, so a bit down because it was a bit oversaturated in comparison. And sharpness up to 133 because it didn't have that background noise that I was seeing in the BRIO 300. Alright, so what's the final verdict? Well, the Logitech BRIO 300, even though it's at the exact same distance, everything, lens, you can kind of see it on frame here. It is a little bit undersaturated. I don't love the field of view being less than the 78 or so degrees field of view that the C920 Pro has. I gotta say the image is better in the C920 Pro as well, even though it's a bit on the purple side, which I'm not a huge fan of. I wish it could split the difference between the C920 Pro and where the BRIO 300 were. But is the BRIO 300 worthy of the title to be the best Logitech $60 to $70 webcam? No. The Logitech C920, C922, those cameras, in my opinion, are still slightly better than the Logitech BRIO 300. The one advantage I would say that the BRIO 300 has is it's USB-C. It's also a little bit more modern looking if you want something a bit more modern looking. But other than that, from a pure imaging quality standpoint, even though it's a bit on the purple side, the C920 is a better camera in my opinion. So hopefully you could see in terms of the differences between the two, this is giving you some value in terms of your streaming, working from home, your Microsoft Teams remote calls. If you like the video, be sure to give me a like. Otherwise, subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Check out also the Logitech webcam review for 2023 that I just recently published without the Logitech BRIO 300. And as always, thanks for watching.